Hello, everyone. Oscar here. A while ago, there was a post on X or Twitter where a fan page asked the official Bendy account whether or not a Bendy crossover with Dead by Daylight could happen in the near future. The Bendy account then responded with the following message: Dreams can come true. Since I'm a pretty big Dead by Daylight fan, I was randomly thinking of this one day, but that's when I thought, well, everyone in the power scaling community always says that Bendy's so powerful, but how well could he actually do against the killers in Dead by Daylight? And that's exactly what this video is about. I'll be pitting the Ink Demon against all 41 killers in Dead by Daylight, along with some of their legendary skins and the entity to see whether or not he could keep up. So without further ado, let's jump right in. This video will be split into two rounds. For the first round, I'll scale Bendy without any of his universal or outerversal shenanigans, and for the second round, I'll go into his higher end feats. For the first round, Bendy will be put up against all 41 killers from the Trapper to the Kresu, along with Naughty Bear, the Mordeo, the Looksee, Hunk, William Birkin, the Xenomorph Queen, Tiffany Valentine, the Yellow Rabbit, and finally, the entity. For Bendy's lower end feats, he's at least small building level. He was able to kill the projectionist pretty easily, who can survive attacks from an axe and a Tommy gun without any issues. He also skills above Audrey, who can smash open vent covers with a pipe. I could go on about Bendy's numerous small building level feats, but you can get him higher. Bendy is able to envelop an entire room full of ink, which is a lot of math that I don't feel like explaining, but that feat gets him to city block level. For his speed, his lowest feats place him at superhuman, being able to catch up to Henry and crossing a corridor in less than a second. At his best, he's supersonic, as he's able to dodge bullets from the player. So, how well can Bendy do against Dead by Daylight? Before I talk about the crossover killers, let me first talk about the scaling for the original DBD killers. All of the original killers scale to each other, so a feat that one of them performs, the others are comparable to. For strength, they are at least wall level. The Oni is able to destroy a door-sized wall with 2 punches, which is actually enough force to be considered wall level. However, there is a feat much better than this. In the Wraith's lore, it's stated that he ripped out someone's spine, which would require approximately 101 tons of force, landing the original killers in multi-city block level. Their speed scaling is pretty straightforward. They're able to outrun the original survivors by simply walking, and keep in mind these survivors are literally running for their lives, so they're trying the best they can. At best, the original survivors have athletic human speed from scaling to Mech Thomas, who is stated multiple times in official media to be very athletic and was a track athlete before entering the realm. This would give the killers at least peak human speed. So, right off the bat, despite the fact that they're much slower than Bendy, the original killers are passing the first round due to their superior strength. However, there are a lot of other killers who won't pass the first round, and since I don't want to go into all their scaling, I'll just list them off. But if you're curious, I got their scaling off of Versus Battle Wiki. The list includes Naughty Bear, the Mordeo, the Looksee, Michael Myers, Leatherface, Freddy Krueger, Amanda Young, the Demogorgon, Pyramid Head, Nemesis, Albert Wesker, Honk, William Birkin, Sadako, the Xenomorph, Xenomorph Queen, Chucky, Tiffany Valentine, Springtrap, and the Yellow Rabbit. You may notice a common theme amongst these characters, and that all of them are pretty much street tier fodder. However, we still have the entity. Its scaling is quite simple, as it's universal from replicating the universe the original survivors come from. This is another loss for Bendy because, well, he isn't anywhere near this power yet. Besides the entity and the original killers, however, the other remaining killers are Pinhead, Vecna, Dracula, and Ken Kaneki. This means that Bendy is taking 19 wins and a whopping 31 losses. Oof. But can he get his redemption in the second round? Now, this is where things start to get a bit crazy. At worst, he's consistently high universal thanks to the many statements of him having infinite power. But Bendy's craziest scaling comes from the cycle. The cycle is described as a parallel to the real world, except for the fact that it's completely removed from the march of time, which we'll talk about a bit later. Joey Drew also says that the cycle is a world realer than the real world, which implies that it's possibly fourth dimensional, which would make Bendy universal plus. Bendy would scale to the cycle, as he's able to shake it on multiple occasions, and it's also stated that his evil causes the world to shudder. Bendy's speed is a bit easier to figure out than his strength, which really isn't saying anything. Like I stated earlier, the cycle is stated to be removed from the march of time, which implies that Bendy has immeasurable speed, but there's another statement that says time doesn't pass in the cycle, which also implies that Bendy has inaccessible speed. It doesn't matter which you believe in because it doesn't affect the verdict of the second round. And speaking of, let's get right to that. With Bendy's crazy new scaling, a lot less killers are surviving the second round. All of the original killers aren't passing along with Pinhead and Ken Koniki, who are only multi-continental and island level respectively. This leaves Vecna and Dracula as the two remaining killers, as they're multiversal plus and low multiversal respectively. But Oscar, what about the entity? Well, I'm glad you asked. You may think that Bendy also solos the entity because it's only universal. But there's one thing that I didn't mention earlier that turns this battle in its favor. You see, the entity isn't a tangible being like Bendy is, which means that Bendy can't even hurt it despite him being much stronger. And without a way to kill the entity, this means that he's taking another loss. So for the second round, Bendy is taking 47 wins and only 3 losses. And that's all for today's video. Thank you sincerely for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment any video ideas you have down below. This is Oscar, signing out and wishing you a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.